Hey guys, I'm Tiffany Harlick, and I'm here to give you the June forecast on the Wise Skies podcast. And if you're new to the podcast, if you're new to Wise Skies as a channel, we've been a go-to trusted source for astrology since 2009. Later, we added on numerology, mediumship, Akashic records, other metaphysical things to learn from. And so we welcome you to check out the website at wiseskiescollective.com. But kind of our anchor, is astrology. I practice in Texas. I practice Western astrology. I practice evolutionary astrology. And to me, what that means is that astrology is dynamic. It's changing. We use that quantum physics rule that the observer affects the experiment, right? So there's this whole discussion in the Wise Skies Inner Circle group on Facebook about like, well, if you know the future, can you change it? And it's a cool question to think about, to consider yourself, because if you know the June forecast, ahead of time, what are you going to do with it? Astrology, this is like the weather forecast. So we're looking at where the planets are in the skies, what's going to go down. Is it going to rain or is it going to be sunshine and roses? Now I'm looking at this time of year. I write the astrology a year in advance. So everything I'm going over now with you guys is something that I've been looking at for well over 6 months. And I was thinking that, once we got through mid-June, that July was going to give us a little bit of a breather. I'm still feeling that way. I'm feeling like we've got to be turning a corner. I know there's so many people in my private practice that are just really hitting an edge and learning new ways to breathe into it. And yes, I'm sitting in my bedroom floor for this episode, so welcome. Let me just address that so it's not awkward for me the whole time. But there's just so many people that are coming up and hitting an edge and making a pivot. May was a great month for that. In my personal life, I had to make a lot of pivots that were not comfortable. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not like, rah, change is good. I'm there with you, in the mud going through it, even though I could see some of it coming, So I want to give you a little bit of a cosmic roadmap. Wise Skies helps you connect the cosmic dots. So working with how the astrology works with the numerology, works with the sacred traditions, of the wheel of the year. So a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into the June astrology. Let's see what's going on at Wise Skies. Okay, I'm going to have a special summer solstice episode on the podcast only. I'm not going to do it through YouTube because I have a couple of really special guests that are going to come to the show. The first one is going to be Elise with Selfless Cloak. Elise is so cool. I just took a macrame class with her. Met her in Waco at a metaphysical event, but she's a crystal connoisseur, is that the right word? And she's going to teach us about which crystals we can really work with on the summer solstice. She's doing this for the podcast, but she's also hosting a really special class through Wise Skies on June 3rd. June 3rd is a magical day, so circle it no matter what, if you're with us in class or not. But she's going to go over sunstone, Baltic amber, which is new to me, pyrite, golden healer quartz, which definitely lit that one up, some fire quartz, and some gold sheen obsidian. So stay tuned for that podcast next and that class with Elise on the 3rd. On the podcast, April, our colleague, our Wise Skies intuitive, is going to open the Akashic records and give us a special solstice reading. So I'm personally really looking forward to that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Now, if you're here for just the short talking points and you just want to kind of quick overview at a glance of what's going on with the numerology and astrology, I'm going to give you those bullet points first, and then I'm going to break June down into 3 main acts. So if you're intimidated, if you don't know what words I'm saying at the beginning, just hang in there a few minutes and we'll get to it. Okay, so numerology is shifting from a 1 into a 2. So it'll be a 2 universal month in June. That's about relationships, right? In the astrology on June 2nd, Venus will enter Cancer. We like that, yay. And it happens on a last quarter moon day, which happens to be in 11 degrees of Pisces. So lots of good feels on June 2nd. You can circle that as a good mojo day. On June 3rd, the sun is going to trine Saturn, which Saturn is retrograde right now. To me, that's like a big manifestation portal. To me, that's a really exciting transit to work with. And that's why we picked June 3rd to do the summer solstice crystal class. On the 10th, there's a new moon in 19 degrees of Gemini, also really, really exciting. On the 11th, Mars will enter Leo. He likes being there, fire, fire, right? On June 13th, retrograde Saturn will square Uranus. Now, this is one of the big gong crashes that I was talking about all year long, really, and I'll go into detail about why I think that's something to be really aware of. On the 20th, Jupiter retrogrades into Pisces, and it's also the summer solstice, and it's also happy birthday Cancer with the sun in Cancer. I'm going to be honest, like I was excited about Jupiter and Pisces until we got this kind of preview of it in May. I'm like, why am I so tired? I'm like, oh yeah, Jupiter and Pisces has got to have some pull in that direction. So anyways, we're going to get a little sneak peek. What's cool about Jupiter is that look back to what you were doing 12 years ago. That's the last time Jupiter was in the sign that it's in. So you can work in these 12-year increments when you start working with Jupiter magic. On the 22nd, Mercury will go direct in Gemini. So I didn't say it to begin with. We enter June. Mercury is retrograde in Gemini. It will go direct on the 22nd. We have a really powerful article written by our friend and colleague Sasha Boyle about all of the Mercury retrograde cycles for 2021. They're all in air signs this year. Very interesting parallels that she drew. So I invite you to check that out at wiseskiescollective.com. You can just search Mercury retrograde and it'll pop right up. So on the site. Guys, what else? Let's see. On the 24th, retrograde Saturn will sextile Chiron during a full moon eclipse that happens in 3 degrees of Capricorn. So that's for all of the cardinal signs. That's for the earth signs. Big full moon eclipse energy coming your way on the 24th, all of our way. And I read the funniest thing on Twitter a little bit ago. I guess it's a thing that people don't go outside during the eclipse. Sorry, I never learned that. Don't know anything about that. But a little tidbit for you there. On the 25th, Neptune will retrograde into Pisces. And so that's the short bullet points. You know, on June 1st, like on the first day of the month, I think it's kind of a Jewish heritage thing that we learned, but it's an auspicious time to clean your house, you know. So if you want to do a big house cleaning, if you want to do some saging, some sweeping, some power washing, stuff like that on the 1st, it's a really auspicious time for that. It's also an auspicious time to change your address numerology. So we have handouts with that if you need some help changing your address numerology. Why would you want to do that? You know, your address, it adds up to a number. It is a frequency. It does have an effect. And when you change the number, it changes the frequency. It changes the radio station that you're living in. So super fun, you know, magic to work with on the first day of the month. I also like to kind of note what sign the moon is in on the first day of the month, because I think it gives us a tone to just kind of remember, you know, where we're starting the month. And for us on June, the moon will be in Pisces. So this is like the tones of compassion, the tones of selfless service. Just keep that close to your heart this month. In June 1st, it happens on a Tuesday. You know, Tuesday is ruled by Mars, the initiator. So what do you want to set in motion? Where do you want to shine? It's important to keep these things front of mind, because we're in a 5-year. So I'm going to shift gears and talk about the numerology a little bit. The 5-year is adventurous, it's fun, it's spontaneous, but it can also pull you in a lot of different directions, right? If you look at your hand, so those of you guys listening that aren't seeing me on YouTube, and you do a number 5, you can see you're drawn in a whole lot of different directions. And so I just think it's important to keep checking in with ourselves throughout the year. Have I made some progress in some areas that I wanted to? And that might be that I rested more. You know, I'm not saying that you need to check a whole bunch of boxes off of your task list. I'm just suggesting that sometimes at the end of a 5-year, we feel like, whoa, I was in the washing machine of life, stuck on the country song cycle. You know what I mean? And like, what did I get? Did anything even get washed? You know what I mean? So that's the numerology of the whole year. We're still in a 5, but it's also a 2-month. How do you combine the relationship energy of the two, look, I'm like throwing signs, with the energy of the five. Well, you can be adventurous in your partnerships. You can take your buddy on a road trip. The two is also about having integrity in your partnerships. It's about navigating the ups and downs of life together as a unit. And so I want you to consider who really lights you up, who really makes you smile. It's also, if things aren't going so hot in your relationships in general, it's a good time to take a relationship inventory. And what does that look like? How do you take a relationship inventory? Well, you list a bunch of your relationships and you look for patterns, and you start to consider how other people make you feel, and then you turn it around on yourself and consider how it might be for somebody to be on the other side of you. um, there's a whole process to that. So the idea here is that the two reminds us, also being Mercury retrograde in Gemini, right, that people are mirroring stuff to us. Um, so a funny story example. Oh, maybe I shouldn't do the whole thing. The idea is that when you squeeze an orange juice comes out. So if you squeeze me, whatever's inside is going to come out. So if I have an angry reaction, if I have a sad reaction, if I have a happy reaction, it's because that's what's going on in the interior landscape, right? So knowing that whatever triggers are coming at you, it's just a mirror of what's going on with yourself at a deeper level. You can thank these energies, you can think these people, you can think these situations that you find challenging, and realize that you have a part to contribute in the healing, the laughter, the joy. It doesn't have to be happy all the time. That's not what I'm suggesting. It's just an opportunity to reflect, right? It's also a good time with the numerology to reconnect with people that you love. Uh, Now, not everybody is traveling to see each other. I get that too. Maybe you can write some gratitude letters. Maybe there's some other things that you can do to reconnect with people that you share a history with, that you share a past with. Now, the relationship of the two, it's not just with the people and the pets and the situations and the things in life, it's also the relationships we have with the unseen world. Okay, so for me, that's the guardians, the angels, God, that spirit, that great creator, that essence that wants to co-create. That's a two as well. What are some bad behaviors of the two? If everything's on a frequency, you can watch out for some people pleasing tendencies. It could be that some codependent behavior pops out. It's all about the give and take. So if you notice that you're feeling clingy, or you're like pining after a thing, or you're trying to take care of somebody that doesn't really want your help and you're actually enabling them worse, it's like, just notice that, right? That's the first step. And then take a step back, right? And just stay on your own mat, right? That's all. Okay, so we're aware of all of those things. Let's jump into the first act of June. So I'm looking at the first week of June, and I'm just saying for overall for the month of June, just to allow yourself and everybody a little bit of space, a little bit of grace, remembering that wonderful Ram Dass quote that we're all just walking each other home. Everybody's figuring it out, even our mentors, even our mentees, right? The big thing about June, I think that there's a lot of people hitting their breaking point. A lot of people are having kind of a liberating new experience. This is because of that Saturn-Uranus square I'm calling a gone crash. It's the second of 3 gone crashes. The first one we had was on February 17th. For us in Austin, we had snowpocalypse. It was completely shut down, serious weather event going on. People experience that differently throughout the world, of course, but that's what my experience is to contribute to that. The second one is June 15th. Now, when we're talking about these big outer planets, we're not talking about like, and June 15th was the day. It's like, no, it's a crescendo. It's getting louder and louder. So some of you guys have already been feeling it in May. It's not that, yet maybe you're going to have a big weather event. I don't know. But it's the idea here is that Saturn is like the old structure, right? The way we do things, the discipline, the honor, the duty. And then there's Uranus that has a different idea and destroys that building that was there. And we think that, when these two titans clash like that, both of them are cold, outer, icy planets, and it feels very rigid. It doesn't feel like let's get together and create something. It doesn't feel like Jupiter and Neptune, you know what I mean? It feels like something's gonna break, you know. And Uranus really likes that sense of freedom. You know, Uranus rule and Saturn both rule Aquarius, the sense of freedom. So a lot of astrologers have been talking about this as a deconstruction of a sense of freedom. Now, you know what I in the conversations that I have around this, I'm like, I think you're free as you want to be. um, Sharon Gannon writes many books. She's a yoga teacher with Jiva Mukti. And one of my favorite quotes from her is, you know, liberation isn't for everybody, but it might be for you. And, you know, it's like, I don't know, pick your path, you know, pick your people, pick your tribe that you want to be with. Because things are breaking down and we need to have that sense of connectedness, that sense of tribe, that sense of belonging somewhere. It's a basic human need. You know, it's in Maslow's hierarchy somewhere. I'm sure of it. I have a master's in health psychology. Haven't looked back at Maslow's in a while, but you know what I'm saying. You know, find your people. Live and let live. You know, people are just having a tough time, and so a lot of people are acting out of fear, shame, and guilt. And we just don't want to argue, defend, or explain. We just want to be a sounding board and also know when it's time to kind of go within and unplug. So this is a major theme of June. It does release on the 15th. I want to make sure that we point out there is some softness and warmth available during the June skies. It's not all bad drama, but this is a significant anchor of the year. So February, June, and again, June 15th, and again on December 24th on Christmas Eve. All right. So this is something to keep in your back pocket. That way it doesn't catch you by surprise. Now we're going to go into the first act of June. Very good. Okay. So June 2nd, Lady Venus, you know, the planet that represents the goddess, the gorgeous one, our finances, our worth, our self-worth, our sense of luxury, our sense of beauty, our sense of creativity and sensuality. You know, Venus will enter Cancer. You know, Cancer is very complex. Cancer is a beautiful tapestry of emotional intelligence, and also, you know, control. Right. So there's this interesting intersection going on in the sky. So Venus and Cancer over here. Later, we're going to see Mars and Leo. So on one hand, things are very watery. On another hand, side of the month, things are very fiery. This is familiar to me. So if you guys, if we haven't met yet, I am a sun and moon in Scorpio. Actually, I have 4 planets in Scorpio in my 12th house. And then I've got Sag rising. And in Sagittarius, I have both Mars and Neptune. Most of my chart is water and fire. So I'm very comfortable with this energy, but I know that it gets steamy. And I know that sometimes when it rains, it pours. And I'm aware of that as I'm watching over the June astrology again. So Venus in Cancer, that'll be June 2nd through 27th. This is one of the feel-good parts of the astrology weather. You know, if the planets are like all these different kinds of wildflowers blooming, you know, Venus in Cancer is like that sea of blue bonnets. So it's like the painting this beautiful blue color in the rolling fields, you know, or the lavender fields, like something like that. Beauty, security, feeling safe at home. These things are important to us while Venus is in Cancer. So some people might be upping their home security system. Some people might be nesting. Some people might be making their homes softer, more beautiful, buying blankets, getting new throw pillows. I know that sounds really materialistic. It could be something more like cooking your favorite home cooked meal. But this is part of the subtle energies. It's just time to nest and retreat. This is counterintuitive to me saying, you know, go on a road trip. So just know that, yeah, there's some mixed messages in astrology. There's some mixed messages in the weather patterns too. And sometimes we get it wrong, you know, but best time of the year to nest, to love your surroundings, to really consider where you want to have roots, to consider how you can make your bedroom more cozy, you know. Also going on June 2nd, you're like, how are we ever going to get to the end of this podcast, right? Also on June 2nd, the sun is going to sextile Chiron, and it's happening on a last quarter moon day. This is when we need to seek to understand. This is when we need to find compassion and let some things go. The sun sextiling Chiron, this is very healing energy. It's like when you just drop it, when you just drop it and drop it into your God box and let something go. You don't have to be the solver of every single solution. I'm talking to myself, right? All right. So this first week of June, still, we're looking at June 1st through 9th. That's kind of at home, keep the home fires burning. In work and at business, with your finances, I'm suggesting we work with the art of attraction rather than promotion. What's going on is that Mercury retrograde in the sky is semi-sextile Mars, and this really energizes us to go back over old ideas and rewrite them. Like I have this whole okay, I'm going to tell you this book. All right. So you guys know that before I launched into Wise Skies, I wrote 15 cookbooks. I'm a cookbook bestseller. And then I started Spellbound Publishers, is Wise Skies' sister company who publishes metaphysical books. I'm a total book nerd. And I've had 2 or 3 book ideas that I've always wanted to do. One of them is called Fork and Moon, and it's about gardening with the moon and then eating with the moon, and it's just a really fun book. So I'm getting my recipes together for that. Of course, they're all vegan and natural, because I changed eating after all of those years of writing about food entrepreneurs and traveling, to see food, right? So things changed for me. That's one of them. I'm energized by it because we're building a greenhouse and a new hoop house, and my plants are doing really well, and I'm excited about it. I'm energized by it. That's Mars with semi-sextile Mercury retrograde, an old idea. I'm energized by old ideas. I'm putting new life into old ideas. I'm reworking it. You know what I mean? I picked up an old canvas from 1982 that had a flower pot on it, and I painted a star scene over it. Not really, but you get the idea. We are reworking some things. I like to crochet. So for example, like you could crochet a whole scarf and unwind it all and do a different stitch. That's the idea, is that you're recreating, you're making something new that out of old stuff, right? All right. So business, you're like, wow, you really got off. So for me, that's business, because I like to write books. I also have been considering working on a bit of a memoir that talks about some of my near-death experience, some of my life choice experiences, and it's called The After Party. So it makes sense in a lot of ways. It's very punny, and I'm not sure how I feel about sharing that much. So we'll see what I feel like, come mid-June, when this Mercury semi-sextile Mars is going on. We're energized by pioneering old topics, so it can also be a really interesting time in business for you to be looking at patents, looking at different ways of securing IP, intellectual property. It's like you don't want to really sign deals or contracts or whatever during Mercury retrograde, but just pay attention, because this whole thing goes down 4 times. So May 10th, we were going to clue in about what was happening. June 2nd, we were going to reconsider it. That was a good idea, or no, it wasn't. July 27th is when we can pivot, when we can see like, okay, we can see a little bit more clearly. And then December 13th is the time when it's ready to go forward. So it could be that I release my books at the end of December. June 3rd, I told you to circle because it's a manifestation portal. Now, that's just me using colorful, flowery language. I don't know what everybody else refers to when they're making up their manifestation portals, but that's the one that Wise Skies is going to promote this month. Why the sun is going to trine retrograde Saturn. To me, that's positive change when you commit, Saturn, to right action. The sun. This is solar powering yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah, solar powering yourself. So ask for support, you're going to get it. Especially Venus, Venus is trying Jupiter in the skies that day too. And there's an Aries moon. It's like, yeah, it's okay to solar power yourself, to solarize yourself, to ask for support with the 2 energy from the divine, and to receive it. Okay. 2 reasons to stay vigilant. So you guys, if you know me, you know that I like to stay super positive, optimistic, bright-eyed about things, but there are 2 reasons to stay really vigilant, especially 3 reasons really. So including the Saturn-Uranus square, we've got Mercury square. So Mercury's retrograde and it's squaring Neptune. Ouch. And Mars is opposing Pluto. Ouch. That's two warriors. That's two bows drawn at each other, you know, and it's like kind of like this stare down. This is happening, stare down, but serious. Okay. So even with all the good juju, I'm really concerned. Mercury square Mars, this is Mercury rules the mind, the way we think, the way we understand information, the details, you know, info, data. Neptune is where things are a little bit blurry, a little bit more confusing, you know. So this can be when lies come out. This can be when someone contacts you and says, hey, you have a baby, you know what I mean? This can be when somebody takes the wrong medication on accident or on purpose, you know, unfortunately. So I just want you to stay vigilant. This is a time when checking out could really cost someone their mental health or their life. You know, you've heard all of the bad stuff. Look, I was a party girl, okay? I haven't in a long time, but the idea here is that I'm going to level with you. People, it takes like one little wrong thing to go bad at a party for somebody to lose their life. And this is that kind of energy where I'm like, oh, I hope everybody's really super safe right now. I was on the water ski team in college, and the idea of mixing like water with fire with booze, you know, is like really scary sounding to me during this first week of June. So a lot of people are out on the water. Just be safe, just be really careful, just stay vigilant. I'm not saying don't do anything. I'm just saying stay vigilant. Things aren't necessarily as they seem right now. So what else can I tell you? Drink water. That's another good one. Stay patient. And just remember that your soul's growth is at stake, right? So if you're going to have a big, huge, loud reaction, is that going to give you an emotional hangover? Are you going to feel like a jerk afterwards? Are you going to, you know, feel badly about this? Or is the path of peace just kind of standing back a little bit, right? Do you have to correct everything? Or can you just step back and say, isn't that curious? Isn't that interesting? I wonder how you're going to handle this today. You know, do I have my head bob going? All right. Okay, good. So drink water. Drink water, stay patient, be really careful. When the outer planets, when those fiery planets, not outer planets, oppose and square and confuse and like start to ring you out, this is like a time to keep the pets safe and your little safe and your elderly safe. This is a time when freak accidents can happen. Of course, that's any time of year but this is what the astrological weather is doing to us in June. There's a mid-month climax going on with that big, huge gong crash. Just remember that not everybody wants or needs your help. There's an Anne Lamott quote that's one of my very favorites. She says, help is just the sunny side of control. So all of that Venus and Cancer sounds great unless deep down you're helping to control people. You know what I mean? A bright light in the sky is the new moon. You know, always the new moon to me is one of those anchors, those times when we can feel like there's a little bit of hope, a little bit of sparkle, some magic. And for us, for all of us, it's happening on June 10th in 19 degrees of Gemini. I love this because I like learning. I like staying on top of things. I like listening to new podcasts. I like getting new material. I like taking new yoga classes. And Gemini is very busy like that. And I don't have anything in Gemini. And I belong to a writer's club that's called the Gemini Moon Writing Group because they all have their moon in Gemini. I don't, but it's like there's so many ideas. There's so much to talk about. There's so much information to gather and exchange. And the new moon, this is the time to call that in. This is one of the main reasons that April and I decided to put her Akashic Records readings on sale for the month of June, because this new moon in Gemini, it's like opening the library. You know, everything you ever knew or will know are in the pages of the Akashic Records, these energetic pages. And if you're curious to know more about what that is, I just invite you back to that summer solstice podcast. So the new moon, this is like in Gemini, this accentuates us learning from a lot of different angles. So a new moon intention, right? I'm willing to communicate with integrity, trust my inner voice, and work within divine right timing. I'm present. That's a good new moon intention to have. I just choose to be present. Um, Gemini energy can have a lot of tabs open. So it's okay to multitask. It's okay to be the social butterfly, but just remember to stay present. You can set some intentions or write your wish maps or draw wish mandalas in some of these areas. You could be asking for support with a new hobby, specifically something to do with your hands, lungs, shoulders. These are things like playing guitar, piano, carpentry, right? Stuff like that, new hobbies. It could be that you want to take some new classes. I'm gonna subliminally, it's not subliminal at all. I'm going to shamelessly plug the June 3rd summer solstice crystal class. Maybe it's a good time for you to be learning about crystals. Trusting the clear communication you're receiving, like you're getting the information, it's coming to you. There's spiritual signposts all over the place, and you're just scrolling right past them, not taking them seriously. So a new moon intention could be, I trust the clear communication that's coming my way. I'm starting to trust it. Yeah. So working with your hands and vocal cords, uh, asking for support, juggling tasks and priorities in a balanced way, joining a new book club, getting into a new writing group, making new friends. Gemini is about friends and siblings too. So connecting with siblings or people that you grew up with. So some crystal moon magic for you with that Gemini. We've got labradorite for consciousness expansion. Okay, cool. And sodalite, which is all about the throat chakra and help with clear communication. It's like the Toastmaster stone, right? So something else, the sun is going to conjunct retrograde Mercury on that new moon in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So, we get a little boost. I'm suggesting maybe you get a vegan bulletproof coffee lift or something fun. I feel like you're going to be on. I feel like you're going to be ready for success. I feel like there's good news that day. I feel like communication flows. It's a good time to send newsletters. It's a good time to refine your image. It's a good time to launch an ad, things like this. Maybe reinvest in some different things. Now, the low vibes of the Gemini new moon, if this impacts your chart negatively, right? So there's a weather report, and then there's the weather report. Like how it affects all of us is different than how it affects one or two people individually. So if you're having a hard time with this new moon, just know that it's a time where you can ask for help with basically stop overcommitting, stop overthinking, become more detached, help with indecision, help with like that 7 of Cups energy where there's analysis paralysis, where there's so much to decide that you just do nothing. You can ask for support if you've been overly impulsive or if you've had a lot of anxieties, some of the mental illnesses, if you've had learning disorders, stuff like that. So those are things that you can ask for help with overcoming. All right, so we're in the middle part of the month. All right, so Mars is going to shift from Cancer into Leo on Friday the 11th. And so that kind of lights a fire in the belly. This helps us focus on our passion projects. This helps us connect at the heart level. This reminds us to stick with the winners. We have this sensual, charismatic, magnetic energy behind us. The 11th all the way through July 29th. So Mars in a fire sign again. We had Mars in Aries for like 8 years, not really, but you know what I'm saying. It was so long, you guys that follow the astrology, right? Like it was so long. So here we are again with Mars in a fire sign. So what are we going to do different? In love, maybe you can activate that 2-5 numerology code on the weekend of June 12th through 13th. Venus is going to square Chiron, ouchie, and yet also sextile Uranus. Curious, interesting. So I feel like there's a plot twist. I feel like you can rediscover your love language. I feel like you can pay attention to the messages that your relationships are giving you. So there's just something about learning through the lens of another person. Don't be surprised if you're feeling this a few days ahead of schedule. So I'm saying the 12th and 13th could be more like the 9th and 10th. The idea here is that there's like a magical third option. There's a way to entertain yourself. There's a way to not feel so heavy and down and depressed. It's like a play date. It's like a choosing a pet name for your beloved. It's like just conjuring a magical third option where there was an impasse, before. Now at work, Venus, while she's doing all those other things, she's going to in conjunct retrograde Saturn. So sometimes you have jobs that you love, and sometimes a job is just a job. And at this point of the month, mid-month, this is a time just to be really responsible, conservative, chop wood, carry water. If you've got to make some sacrifices now for a longer commitment, that's what that energy looks like. Sacrifice isn't always bad. Like sacrifice is like me not buying 8 candles when I go to the grocery store because it's not on my budget. Like it doesn't have to be that. That's a shallow way of putting it, but you know what I'm saying. Um, Now, okay, so basically just staying disciplined with work, with your approach to living life, with your budget, with your finances. You want to live life by your own design, and that's going to take cutting some things back, so you can get what you want in the long run. This transit occurs twice in 2021, and they're kind of close together. So June 13th and July 30th. Again, it's not, that's when the transits release, but you're going to be feeling them louder and louder a couple days before, and then boom, the bubble's going to burst and they'll release on the 13th and 30th. I mentioned that energy levels might be lower with that Jupiter and Pisces going on. Also, the sun is going to square Neptune. Saturn is going to square Uranus. Like I just feel like there's some heaviness mid-month. And so if you have all these great ideas, but it's not the right time to execute them because Mercury's retrograde, among other things, just give yourself plenty of time on the calendar. This is not the mid-month is not the time to go crazy booking yourself minute by minute. Give yourself lots of breathing room. Bookend your time with, like, pad your appointments with time. Thank you. And just be aware that some of us are going to have lower energy levels depending on how these planets are interacting with your chart personally. Now, I talked about the Saturn-Uranus square as the second gone crash, and I did want to mention that this is part of a larger cycle. So this is part of a cycle that started in 1988 and is going through 2032. And what's interesting, I think, about this particular one is that it's kind of setting the stage for the United States Pluto return. I decided to dip my toes in an area that I don't normally dip my toes in. It's not politics. It is finances. Okay. So I have a special report on the United States Pluto return that I've done a financial horoscope for you. Why is this special and why am I talking about it with Saturn Uranus square? You have a solar return on your birthday. The sun comes back to the same place in the sky where it was on your birthday once a year, right? So every 1 year. The Mars returns every 2 years. So when kids have their terrible twos, they're having their Mars return, that sense of like personal power. Saturn returns every 27 years to 30 years. That's the 27 club, where life starts to feel intense, where you start to take on more discipline, where the rock and rollers, some of them checked out and died, a lot of them, or what was it, 69 that those initial ones happened, but again, later too, with, Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, right? These are the ones that are coming to mind. I'm telling you this because people don't really have their Pluto return, because Pluto returns every 248, 250 years, give or take, right? So, but countries do. Countries have their Pluto return. So you can imagine like a solar return, your birthday, you feel great. Your Mars return, there's some sense of urgency on those even numbered years. Your Saturn return happening when you're 27 to 30 and again 60-ish, right? That's that sense of like life's getting really serious right now. So in the country, there are lots of countries to pull from, to look at what was happening during their Pluto return. The Roman Empire. There's a lot of people that have looked at France. And so I have this whole special report for you. So if the Pluto return interests you, that's a whole other separate topic that I have prepared for you. that also has your financial horoscope. And I think that a lot of people are being affected financially. Interesting what's going on in the United States government in terms of um, like pandemic relief money coming from the government. Who's getting it, who's not getting it, who's doing awful, who's doing really well. Like the tables are turning like upside down and backwards, and it's like Fantasia in there. And so I think that people really are curious about what's going on with their finances. And so I'm looking at it through the lens of the United States Pluto return, as well as this Saturn-Uranus square. So again, I practice in Austin, Texas. I do Western astrology. It doesn't mean it's not useful for you if you're on the other side of the world, but I want you to just know where I'm coming from, right? Why I'm writing about this. Pluto return is 2022 through 2025. This is the time when we are starting to feel it. If you look at other significant plutonic events in the history of the United States, you're going to see some similar interesting financial info. I'm going to let it be mysterious. Also, I just don't want to lose my place in the document. And I'm afraid if I click away and look at my other notes that I'm going to lose June. So, all right, so let's get back into June. On the 17th, June 17th, there's a first quarter moon in 27 degrees of Virgo. The sun will in conjunct Pluto. This is a time of the month to put your faith into action. Faith without works is dead. Faith doesn't mean anything unless you're acting on it, right? So it's like often when you do something, the spiritual blessing follows, right? It doesn't come before. It's not like, oh, I got a spiritual blessing and now I'm going to behave. No, you're puking on the toilet before you make a change. You know what I mean? So I know some of you guys are going to text me about that. All right, no name calls. So we talked about Jupiter retrograding into Pisces. This is happening June 20th. A lot of astrologers are saying this is one of the best transits of the year. So how can you incorporate, so Jupiter, anytime we have a retrograde planet, this is like a miniature version of its opposite. So with Saturn retrograde, it acts like a mini Jupiter. With Jupiter retrograde, it acts like a mini Saturn. All right. And so there's an element of discipline that I think is not getting discussed in a lot of the circles that I follow. So for me, Jupiter retrograde in Pisces is about incorporating a little bit of discipline into what? Jupiter and Pisces, your spiritual walk. So spiritual discipline. How can you have regular meditation and yoga and vegetarian diets? How can you connect with like-minded people that are your Sangha that want to discuss important life issues, that help you grow? Can you have a Tuesday night virtual get together? Can you get in part of a book club that discusses stuff that really matters to you? So also be sure to use some gratitude magic. What you think about expands, thank your lucky stars, connect with your guides using that 2 energy. Jupiter expands, Pisces is into the mystic, so it can be a really cosmic magnifying glass. So what you focus on expands, right? So just be really aware of that around the 20th. Happy birthday to all the Cancers out there. Everybody with their sun in Cancer. The sun will be in Cancer from June 20th through July 22nd. We love doing birthday readings. So if you have a Cancer that you want to gift a little tarot wheel or an astrology predictive chart for, or like a natal reading, we would love, love, love to do that. So happy birthday, all of you Cancers. It's your time of the year to shine. Let's see, June's closing act. So the third section of June, the 21st through the 31st. I have some more good news for you here. Venus will trine Neptune. We needed that. That's like a break in the clouds. That's like love is in the air. That's like romance and fantasy and rose-colored glasses and working your magic and just feeling better, Look back to January. January was maybe an icier time emotionally, but what were you really falling in love with? What were you excited about? What were you hopeful for to accomplish this year? Can you revisit some of those things? Again, it's not really about checking a box off your task list as much as it is about how you're wanting to feel as you walk through your day. Yes, I'm skipping over that. Okay, big magic happens. So Mercury direct in Gemini, the sun is going to trine Jupiter, the planet of luck, abundance, magic, on the 23rd. So 23rd, we're like this whole, it's like, yeah, we're going to be feeling a lot better at the end of June than we are at the beginning of June. Um, this is the power of attraction. This is standing in your power. This is feeling empowered. This is when the course starts to radically change for the better. Sometimes when things radically change for the better, it doesn't feel like it, you know? So again, using those different quarter moons to let things go, put them in your God box. On the 24th is when we have that full moon eclipse in Capricorn. So cardinal signs, earth signs, likely to feel this a little bit more. Now, the full moon eclipse in Capricorn, okay, the United States Pluto return is happening in Capricorn in their second house of finances, right? And so I feel like June 24th is going to be very curious, a preview, okay? So is it going to happen exactly on that day? I don't know, probably not. But it's one of those things where you look back and you're like, oh, that's when it started. And it makes sense more retrospectively. So I just want to throw that out there in case I'm right, that I want credit. But in case I'm wrong, it's fake, right? All right. So full moon eclipse, either way, whether it has everything to do with the trajectory of the finances of the United States or not, this is a time to take the road less traveled. This is a time, eclipses are feeling 100 days and 24 hours. It can feel very intense. It can be a time when you can overcome some of your biggest fears, around what are you really afraid of, right? With Capricorn there, I'm going to say authority, your boss, giving your power away, not trusting God, stuff like that. There's some herbs that really resonate with Capricorn energy. So if you're wanting to clean your house on the eclipse on the 24th, let's see, cleaning house, okay, herbs like house cleaning by smudging stuff, making teas, making baths, just plopping them right in your bath and making this big, huge, like herbal bath is a lot of fun, and it really freaks people out, right? So what herbs would you use for that full moon in Capricorn? Rosemary, easy one, right? Rosemary for remembrance, tarragon, caraway, one of my favorite ones to work with, chamomile, and marjoram. So give me your recipes. I want to know what they are so I can put them in my book. But also, let me give you one with caraway. So I love to make turnip mashed potatoes, where you boil potatoes and turnips together. I peel the turnips. Sometimes I peel those potatoes, sometimes I don't. I like to get the really like good gold Yukon-y, like that are real buttery. Like that's my favorite kind. You can get whichever ones you want. You boil them together, you mash them together, you put some vegan tofuti, like vegan sour cream or vegan butter. The Miyokos is one of my favorite brands. And you mash until it's like nice, creamy, good, yummy mashed potatoes. And then you do some mushrooms, like sliced portobellos in olive oil with salt and pepper and caraway. Oh my God. And then like sometimes I'll put the vegan sour cream in there if I want it to be a really creamy mushroom sauce, but sometimes I just like go for it with just the caraway mushrooms. And you put that in a little mashed potato boat, and it's so good. So that's probably what I'll be making on that day. You can use any of those herbs with any of the recipes that you want to play with. Stay true to yourself, basically. What intentions might you be working with? Honoring commitments, making amends, taking responsibility for your part, allowing serious conversations to unfold organically, aligning with with a sense of feeling fulfillment, like with how can I feel more and more fulfilled. So it's not necessarily about success as it is about feeling a sense of fulfillment. Your legacy, your contributions to society and family, you know what I mean? That's something that I'm thinking about now. So you might be thinking about that ahead of time. A lot of you guys know that I got into beekeeping, and I think that's a part of my legacy, helping the environment and helping just keep the conversation going and say, look, every day people can help the planet with housing pollinators, basically, helping our food supply, helping our organic food supply, helping our sense of food freedom, right? So legacy, contributions, stuff like that. This is also a good time to set end dates for long-term goals and projects. It's a good time to find closure from pivotal events in your life. Like let's let a door close. It's a good time to be really considering your public image, your ambitions, things that are very Capricorn related. Capricorn, we talk about jobs and ambitions and authority, but Capricorn, it's half sea, it's the sea goat, it's half goat and half magical creature that goes deep into the depths of underwater. Every Capricorn I know is a very gifted healer, very gifted specifically with earth magic. Meaning like crystals and herbs. So letting that be part of your eclipse intentions too. So what does that look like? I am excited to learn more about herbs and crystals. That's all, right? All of my financial needs are provided for now and forever. Money flows easily to me and through me. I am rooted and grounded, Capricorn, in a realistic perspective. Some of us need that. I have no earth in my chart. I've been talking nonstop this whole time. You can see like a lot of my energy is up here. I have to like consciously let myself be rooted. So I'm rooted and grounded in a realistic perspective. Patience and open-mindedness come naturally to me. Sometimes Capricorn energy just kind of has blinders on and sees things this way, right? Very fixed. Even though it's a cardinal sign. You can be releasing self-doubt and self-reliance and all attachment to outcomes. You can, these are different ideas that you can play with. The crystals that I'm suggesting are kyanite. This is for help with inner alignment with your yin and your yang. And garnet for abundance and stabilizing growth. Who doesn't want that? So I mentioned that Neptune was going to retrograde into Pisces at the end of the month on the 25th. This is a very intuitive hit. I said this phrase the other day and my daughter cracked up. I was like, oh, are you getting an intuitive hit that we should go like left instead of right or whatever? She was like, what? I'm like, that's a total thing to say, like intuitive hit. She's like, no, that's not a thing. I'm like, I think it's a thing. I think you can say intuitive hit, like you're getting a download. And she's like, Mom, no. So anyways, Neptune retrograde, it's not going to be loud. It's going to be subtle. So you're working with your intuition always. Just be aware. Are you projecting your dreams, the potential of a situation onto something that's kind of not really as good as you want it to be or as it could be? Are you not really accepting what's real because you've got this big, huge heart and you could see what it could be? These are the things to take into consideration. Neptune is going to be retrograde on the 25th all the way through December 1st. This is normal. It's not like a thunderstorm. It's just like a shift. We start getting a little bit more inside as we leave the summer solstice, as we, there's a return to light, and then there's this return to darkness where we start to go more and more inside towards our hermit energy, towards the end of the year. So very natural. Hopefully you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. So I'm feeling like I've talked for too long. All right, so let's see. At the end of the month, the last thing I want to tell you on on June 29th, also July 18th, also October 9th, and November 25th, Mercury will semi-square Venus. This is, to me, this is like a business boost. This is like where persuasion can help you. This is where you connect with influencers that can promote your message. This is where you influence positively, where there's quirky ways of communication that work in your favor. So, there is this little business boost window to work with. And so like, how does that work out in my life? So for me, I write the digital calendar. We have a digital astrology calendar and I write it every summer. So for me, I like to connect with influencers, and how it works, like the calendar costs $35 for the consumer. When I connect with an influencer, I give them a $5 off coupon. So now it's $30 for their audience, and I split that $30 with the influencer. So 50-50. So every calendar that comes in from that influencer, I share that with. And yes, there's a free version. Yes, you don't have to buy it. Yes, you can see the free version is this month only on the calendar page at wiseskiescollective.com. So if you're like, what is she talking about? You can see the free version is this month only. And then for people that want to buy the whole thing, right? It'll download to any device, it'll work in any time zone, and it'll travel with you as you go. It's a really cool secret weapon. And I write the descriptions of stuff in there. So you're not like, what does the full moon in Capricorn mean again? I've written it down so you can click on the description, right? So what am I talking about? It's because that's how I work with influencers. It's like a quirky way to help sales, to share astrology with more people that are astro curious, and that's the kind of like interesting, I guess, fun way to work with influence, right? So that's one of the things that I do. That's something that you could play with or tweak, or maybe you have a better idea, or maybe you're like, I want to be an influencer. Well, that's the time of year that I'm connecting with people. So again, circle June 29th, and there's 3 other dates too there. What's next in July? The numerology will shift from a 2 to a 3, that creative juice with all of the C's, connection, creativity, childlike wonder, communication, charisma. Basically, if you don't have sodalite, get some for July. The new moon will be on July 9th in 18 degrees of Cancer. The full moon will be on July 23rd in 1 degree of Aquarius. And we have way less to talk about astrologically, which is good. We needed a breather. So just know that things are going to be a little hot and spicy in June still, and it is going to taper off. We're going to have some good mojo. There is a turning point. If you're going through a hard time, keep going. And that's it, guys. To recap, we've got the crystals class for summer solstice coming up June 3rd. April's Akashic record readings are on sale for the minis. They're $44 in the month of June only. You can book at wiseskiescollective.com. For those of you interested in the financial horoscopes I'm doing with the United States Pluto return, you can find all that on the website too. So thanks for hanging out with me. Super one-sided conversation. And I hope you guys have a great June. I hope it's blessed. I hope it's full of magic. Don't forget to look up into the stars, into the scars. All right, into the scars, but also into the stars. All my love to each of you. Thank you for watching Wise Skies and listening to Wise Skies. I know there's a sea of astrologers out there. I know you have many, many people to hang out with, and it means a lot that you come to my channel. So until we can work together, namaste.